Huang's escape from the foreign realm shocked both the enemy world and Imperial Pass. News spread like thunder that a mere self-severing realm prisoner had escaped from a world filled with immortal-level experts. The most unbelievable rumor claimed that he had escaped by riding an ancestral fry. Something almost everyone dismissed as absurd. Many mocked the story, believing the foreign authorities had fabricated it to cover up their own failure. However, as more reports emerged, the truth became undeniable. Cultivators of every race were left stunned that Huang had single-handedly escaped from the enemy world after being captured. Many cursed in anger, believing that if they had known this would happen, a supreme expert should have killed him immediately instead of allowing him to survive. The younger generation was especially unwilling to accept that the terrifying Demon King, whose hands were stained with the blood of countless foreign geniuses, had escaped once again. Even the older generation and higher authorities were deeply shaken because the prisoner personally wanted by the Undying Kings had slipped away, creating enormous pressure throughout the foreign realm. At Imperial Pass, the atmosphere had been gloomy ever since Huang was handed over to the enemy. Early reports claimed he had been crippled, imprisoned, and brutally tortured, causing Cheng Yi, the lunar jade rabbit, Chang Gonggan, and his other friends to fall into grief and bitterness. Many people felt guilty because Huang had made incomparable contributions to Imperial Pass by killing numerous foreign experts and retrieving the rotten wooden chest desired by the Undying Kings, only to end up being sacrificed and abandoned by his own side. Soon afterward, however, new intelligence arrived claiming that Huang had recovered, grown even stronger, defeated members of the Emperor clans, and slaughtered so many young experts that no one dared challenge him. These reports filled the city with excitement, though many still found them difficult to believe. Before long, even more astonishing news arrived claiming that Huang had escaped and was already returning to Imperial Pass. Rumors also stated that he had defeated a time beast and fled while riding a giant fish. Although many people believed the reports about his victories, almost no one could accept the story about escaping on a fish because it sounded too unbelievable. At the same time, another wave of rumors deliberately spread through Imperial Pass claiming that Huang had defected to the foreign side after becoming completely disillusioned with the Nine Heavens. Since he had been betrayed despite all of his achievements, some believed such a decision was understandable and even admitted they might have made the same choice under those circumstances. To prevent panic, Meng Tianzhong immediately ordered that anyone spreading false rumors to stir public opinion would be executed without exception. He judged that the foreign side was intentionally spreading these lies to damage Huang's reputation before his return, ensuring that even if he came back safely, people would already doubt his loyalty. As a result, conflicting reports spread everywhere. Some believed Huang had become an invincible hero who defeated Emperor clan geniuses, killed the Time Beast, and dominated the foreign realm, while others feared he had truly abandoned the Nine Heavens. The arguments became so intense that everyone secretly debated whether Huang remained a righteous hero or had become a traitor. Meanwhile, Shi Hao was actually traveling through an incomprehensible world after the ancestral Fry leapt out of Ocean Fall and escaped the foreign realm. The passage between worlds proved unimaginably terrifying. The ancestral Fry's body shone like a black sun as it resisted an unknown force while rapidly shrinking. Shi Hao, Shenming, and Sanzang were subjected to crushing pressure far beyond their limits, causing every bone in their bodies to shatter. Even Shenming and Sanzang, both self-release realm experts, were pushed to the brink of death. Shi Hao suffered even more because he had not yet reached that cultivation realm. The ancestral Fry itself became covered in blood, its body torn apart while its ancestral patterns gradually dimmed, signaling that its protective power was disappearing. Eventually, the fish ignited its ancestral scriptures and essence blood as a sacrificial offering, using its own life force to leap out of the river of fate. A tremendous impact followed, accompanied by ancient sacrificial chants, causing all of them to lose consciousness while only faintly hearing mysterious ritual voices echoing through the darkness. After an unknown amount of time, Shi Hao regained consciousness at the very end of the mysterious sacrificial ceremony. Every bone in his body had been broken and his flesh was badly mutilated. Yet his powerful physique immediately began repairing itself. Shenming and Sanzang were in a much worse state. Their bodies had almost completely fallen apart. Their primordial spirit flames had dimmed dramatically, and they required tremendous effort just to reconstruct themselves. They were astonished that Shi Hao had recovered far more quickly despite possessing a lower cultivation level. Sanzing could only praise him by saying he truly deserved the title of Huang. While Shenming, despite her injuries, teasingly declared that she was seriously considering taking him as her Dao companion because of his extraordinary vitality. The ancestral Fry had also survived, though it had shrunk from an enormous giant into only a few hundred zhang long and appeared close to death. A remaining ancestral pattern suddenly activated, consuming its remaining essence blood to restore its shattered body while reducing its size even further. During this transformation, its appearance changed dramatically. Its dragon-like head and bull horns gradually evolved into the head of a golden peng before eventually changing once more into a black fish that still carried an unmistakable Kunpeng aura. Shi Hao immediately noticed that the ancestral patterns covering its body closely resembled Kunpeng symbols, causing him to wonder whether the legendary Kunpeng race had originally evolved from creatures like the ancestral Fry. Sanzing explained that after escaping the River of Fate, the ancestral Fry had undergone an immeasurable transformation unlike anything they had previously witnessed. After recovering somewhat, the group finally examined their surroundings. They discovered they had entered an enormous ancient world devoid of spiritual energy. Resembling an abandoned universe forgotten by time, countless dead ancestral Fry lay scattered throughout the desolate land. Some were only a few dozen zhang long, while others stretched for tens of thousands of zhang, suggesting that countless fish had attempted similar transformations in ancient times but ultimately failed. While exploring this silent world, distant ripples suddenly spread across the empty sky, accompanied by solemn sacrificial chants and mournful prayers that sounded as though countless ancient beings were grieving together. Soon afterward, several hundred terrifying creatures appeared, crossing the sky in perfect formation while carrying a grass-woven mat bearing a single person. Shi Hao was completely stunned because any one of these creatures appearing in the outside world would have caused a tremendous sensation. Yet hundreds of them had gathered together to escort the mysterious figure as though they were conducting a grand funeral ceremony for an emperor who had died countless ages ago. Shi Hao, Shenming, and Sanzeng arrived in a barren land beyond the known world. An abandoned region detached from the Great Void. There, they witnessed an astonishing sight. Hundreds of lightning spirits escorting a woven mat carrying the corpse of an unknown individual while releasing mournful cries. As though conducting a grand funeral procession, Shi Hao was deeply shocked because lightning spirits were legendary creatures that fed on heavenly tribulation lightning. Before reaching maturity, they lived exclusively within seas of lightning, making them almost impossible to encounter in the outside world. Shi Hao recalled how the Wang family had once released 3 lightning spirits against him during his heavenly tribulation at Imperial Pass, nearly causing his death. After an extremely difficult battle, he had subdued all 3 and stored them in his lightning pool. Every mature lightning spirit was destined to become an unmatched existence capable of defeating anyone at the same cultivation level and protecting an entire clan for countless generations. Seeing several hundred of them gathered in one place was completely beyond imagination and represented a force that could devastate the world if they ever acted together. Shenming and Sanzeng also recognized the terrifying significance of the scene. The lightning spirits came in many forms and colors. Some were blood red and emitted a murderous aura. Some shone with golden brilliance like members of an imperial clan, while others were silver white, their movements easily shattering space itself. Although their appearances resembled snakes, dragon-like patterns covered their scales, and lightning constantly coiled around their bodies. The largest were as thick as an arm and nearly half a zhang long. Hundreds of these supreme creatures stood upright with their heads raised, radiating true dragon energy and an overwhelming pressure that distorted the surrounding void. Yet instead of displaying their usual violent nature, they bowed in grief before the corpse, suggesting that the deceased possessed an identity so extraordinary that even these heaven-defying beings willingly served as his mourners. Shi Hao carefully sensed the mournful cries and realized they were far more than ordinary sounds. It felt as though countless ancient spirits, legendary predecessors, and even heaven and earth itself were grieving for the dead individual. The sacrificial voices echoed across endless ages, as if the deceased had once made unimaginable contributions to the world. Sanzeng, whose existence stretched back to extremely ancient eras, was visibly shaken. He remarked that even after countless years had passed, the cries of mourning and sacrificial voices still remained, proving that the individual's achievements and status had reached an inconceivable level. When the lightning spirits charged toward them, Shi Hao, Shenming, and Sanzeng immediately prepared for a desperate battle. However, something completely unexpected happened. The lightning spirits ignored them entirely, carrying the woven mat past them without launching a single attack. Despite their naturally savage and domineering temperament, they remained focused only on escorting the corpse. Their sorrowful howls continued to echo through the ruined cosmos, as though they were desperately trying to return home to complete an unfinished funeral rite. Determined to uncover the truth, Shenming activated a forbidden burial technique to read the traces left behind by the corpse. Instantly, an ancient scene unfolded before the three of them. They saw countless races and living beings filling the world, every clan kneeling in sorrow as they gathered to bury a single individual. Endless prayers, sacrifices, and mournful cries resounded throughout heaven and earth. The overwhelming emotions transmitted across endless time directly shook the souls of Shi Hao, Shenming, and Sanzeng, making even them feel an irresistible urge to weep, as though they were personally participating in the ancient funeral. However, Shenming paid an enormous price for attempting to investigate the corpse's past. She suddenly coughed blood, the space between her brows split open, and her primordial spirit nearly shattered. Although the mysterious individual had died countless eras ago, merely trying to examine his history triggered an overwhelming backlash from his remaining Dao laws. Even a self-release realm golden undead knight like Shenming was nearly killed instantly. Her burial technique was forcibly interrupted, and only after a long period did she barely recover. Witnessing this, Sanzeng solemnly questioned whether the corpse might belong to an ancient emperor, because only such a supreme existence could still possess such terrifying power after endless ages. As the lightning spirits disappeared into the distance, countless questions filled their minds. Why had these legendary creatures exhumed the corpse and begun carrying it across the endless starry sky? What had happened to the original burial place? And where were they taking the body? Shenming speculated that what appeared to be an ordinary ruined cosmos might actually be a completely different realm beyond the foreign lands, whose true nature remained unknown. Sanzeng agreed that they had already entered a region outside the normal world. At the same time, they noticed that both the mysterious coon fish and the lightning spirits had appeared in this strange place. Since ancient legends claimed that true dragons might have evolved from lightning spirits, the coexistence of these extraordinary species made the mystery even more profound. Realizing that the truth behind this funeral procession was likely connected to an unimaginable secret, Shi Hao made a firm decision. They would pursue the lightning spirits and discover the destination of the corpse and the purpose behind this unprecedented journey. The lightning spirits carried the corpse on the woven mat deeper into the endless void while Shi Hao, Sanzeng, and Shenming discussed the mysterious coon fry that had brought them there. Sanzeng insisted they should not kill or capture it because ancient burial scriptures stated that once an ancestral fry began transforming, it became an extremely inauspicious yet heaven-protected existence that had escaped its original fate. Shi Hao compared it to ordinary fish that could briefly leap from the river of fate but ultimately fell back unless they truly transformed into a pung and permanently escaped destiny. They then noticed that the Ocean Fall River had mysteriously disappeared, and moments later the coon fries swam after the departing lightning spirits, prompting the trio to continue the pursuit. Traveling through the silent void filled with drifting ruined stars, Sanzeng's bone bracelet suddenly glowed and warned him that the surrounding space was collapsing. Ahead lay a damaged realm wall riddled with cracks, beyond which floated a vast ancient cemetery hidden within mist. Shenming became extremely excited, believing this burial ground might be the legendary homeland from which the ancestors of the burial creatures had originated. The lightning spirits slowed down and carefully searched the cemetery while examining every corner with divine light. Although it was clearly a land of graves, the entire place radiated an indescribable divine aura. Shi Hao suspected they intended to rebury the powerful corpse they carried, while he also wondered whether the lightning spirits, the coon fry, and the ancestral fry were all incomplete forms that shared the same path toward ultimate evolution. Eventually, the lightning spirits stopped before an enormous black tomb resembling a mountain. They broke open the grave and attempted to place the corpse inside, leading everyone to believe they had finally chosen a burial place. However, after inspecting the tomb, they unexpectedly abandoned it and continued carrying the corpse onward. The Kun Fry immediately rushed into the grave before quickly leaving again. Unable to resist the temptation, Sanzing and Shenming entered the tomb as well because they sensed it had once belonged to an undead knight. Inside, they discovered that the ancient stone coffin had completely decayed into the surrounding earth. Sanzing declared it was an ancient tomb that had completely severed life force, while Shenming sensed an aura identical to that of a burial king who had once journeyed beyond the foreign realm. Sanzing further confirmed that an incredibly precious grave medicine had already been taken from this tomb. When Shi Hao asked what this medicine was, Sanzing explained that it was the legendary 3-life medicine, created only after at least 3 great eras of accumulated blood essence from countless creatures soaked into an ancient grave and gradually condensed into medicinal essence. The treasure was priceless for undead beings because it could fundamentally transform them, while ordinary cultivators would explode if they consumed it directly. However, through special refinement methods, it could become the primary medicinal ingredient needed to create the most difficult divine pills. Shenming wondered if a resurrection pill truly existed, but Sanzing explained that such a pill was merely a collective title for supreme medicines rather than a genuine pill capable of reviving a long-dead emperor. Shenming then concluded that the burial king who had once ridden the ancestral Fry beyond the foreign realm had changed his destiny after obtaining a stock of 3-life medicine from this very cemetery, allowing him to eventually become a burial king. Shi Hao speculated that perhaps the lightning spirits had dug up the corpse because they were searching for another 3-life medicine to revive him. Although everyone admitted the entire situation remained incredibly mysterious. Continuing deeper into the cemetery, Sanzing and Shenming repeatedly searched other ancient tombs in hopes of finding their own fortune but obtained nothing. Suddenly, overwhelming cries of mourning echoed throughout the cemetery as temporal radiance gathered into a flowing river of time. The unstable realm wall began reflecting scenes from the distant past. Apparently triggered by the corpse carried on the woven mat, countless ancient figures appeared kneeling, worshipping, and offering sacrifices. Shi Hao was completely stunned when he recognized the grown-up Cao Yusheng among the visions. At the same time, Sanzing and Shenming realized that everyone appearing in the vision possessed at least immortal-level cultivation, making the scene far more recent and significant than they had expected. In the reflected past, the heavily injured Cao Yusheng frantically searched everywhere for the 3-life medicine, shouting that he needed it to refine a heaven-defying divine pill. Beside him was a gigantic black dog covered in blood that repeatedly bit him as the two fought and chased each other throughout the cemetery. Cao Yusheng angrily cursed the dog while desperately shouting that if they failed to find the 3-life medicine, there would be absolutely no hope of reviving him, and the legendary pill would never be successfully refined. Hearing these words and witnessing the desperate struggle left Shi Hao completely shocked. Realizing the mysterious corpse carried by the lightning spirits might be connected to an unimaginably ancient secret involving the attempted resurrection of an extraordinary existence, Shi Hao's thoughts fell into complete chaos after once again seeing the fat Taoist priest, who was actually the future Cao Yusheng resurrected after being buried for countless years. Beside him was a gigantic square-headed black dog whose terrifying aura surpassed even ancient vicious beasts, leaving Shenming shocked and convinced it could easily devour legendary creatures such as Teotes and House. Sanzing explained that the flow of time had become chaotic, causing fragments from different eras to collide and briefly appear in the present. Watching the future Cao Yusheng desperately search for the 3-life medicine, Shi Hao finally realized its true value. Shenming revealed that for golden undead knights, the 3-life medicine was the greatest treasure in existence, capable of allowing one to evolve into a burial king, even joking that if the fat Taoist obtained it, they should rob him. They soon realized that everything before them was merely a fragment of the future rather than reality, meaning neither side could truly affect the other. The fat Taoist and the black dog frantically searched through countless ancient tombs scattered across the strange starry graveyard, overturning one burial site after another in hopes of finding the 3-life medicine. However, they ultimately failed, their figures gradually fading as the time fragment disappeared, leaving behind only the dog's furious barking, the Taoists' angry curses, and finally both of their disappointed cries. Shi Hao wondered who they were trying to save that required them to search this mysterious world beyond the countless realms. After the vision vanished, Sanzing and Shenming searched the ancient graveyard themselves, leaving traces in one empty tomb after another. Although every tomb contained coffins, there were no undead knights, skeletons, corpses, or even the slightest remains, making the entire burial ground strangely deserted. Meanwhile, the lightning spirits continued carrying the corpse on the woven mat across the endless cemetery. But after finding nothing of value, they continued deeper into the unknown. They soon reached what appeared to be the edge of the universe, where shattered realm walls, terrifying cracks in space, broken stars, and heavy traces of time stretched endlessly into the distance. The entire region looked so unstable that it seemed a loud shout could collapse it. Yet Sanzeng discovered that it was actually incredibly sturdy and could survive for tens of thousands more years. There they found an ancient altar refined from unknown bones. Its activation was extremely simple, requiring only magical power, after which 5-colored starlight appeared and the hundreds of lightning spirits carrying the unmatched corpse instantly disappeared. Although Shenming hesitated about continuing, Shi Hao noticed that the Kun Fry was still faithfully following the same route. Sanzeng speculated that it was actually an ancestral fry retracing its path back to its birthplace after reaching maturity. A return journey that astonishingly crossed not rivers but the cosmos itself through ancient altars. Fearing they would lose track of the lightning spirits, the three immediately followed through the altar. They emerged in another ruined world filled with chaotic energy, broken stars, and yet another ancient altar. They could still sense the lingering aura of the lightning spirits. But Sanzeng became concerned because the altars appeared to function only in one direction, making it uncertain whether they could ever return. Even so, they had no choice except to continue. Their next destination placed them atop an unimaginably enormous dried-up divine tree that had failed during its evolution into a world tree, causing both itself and the surrounding world to wither away. From this, they suspected that each altar connected entirely different ancient worlds instead of merely distant regions within the same universe. They continued passing through altar after altar, traveling across 9 different worlds before finally reaching the place where the lightning spirits stopped. This destination was an immense primordial world filled with primal chaos, intertwined yin and yang energy, and no trace of life. As though creation itself had only just begun, the lightning spirits lingered briefly before moving through a mist-covered region by directly crossing the void, appearing extremely excited as though they had finally found their destination. Following them, Shi Hao and the others entered an ancient battlefield filled with shattered warships, broken halberds, ruined stone hatchets, destroyed floating islands, and countless damaged weapons scattered throughout the primal chaos. Shenming carefully sensed the remnants and concluded that many of these had once been immortal artifacts whose symbols, Dao laws, and immortal essence had all been completely stripped away. Ahead of them stood an unimaginably enormous pair of stone gates towering above the stars themselves. In front of the gates lay countless dried corpses of incomparably powerful beings, their flesh withered and their essence entirely extracted, leaving behind only indestructible bones and dried skin. Shi Hao concluded that every magical artifact, every powerful creature, and every trace of their former glory had been deliberately erased after some unimaginable catastrophe. Suddenly, he sensed a strangely familiar aura coming from a corpse resting upon a meteorite before the gates. Although all of its vitality had long vanished, fresh blood still remained before its body, making it an astonishing miracle. Written in that blood were several ancient characters. The first half formed from golden blood and the latter half from black blood. Shi Hao could not recognize the script, but Sanzeng immediately identified it as true immortal writing and translated its chilling message. "Can't go back." Shi Hao discovered that the immortal text carved on the ground consisted of longevity characters, symbols pursued by all clans at Imperial Pass because they represented the path to becoming true immortals. The writing was left by a dried corpse lying before the stone gate on a gray-brown meteorite. The corpse's right hand still carried traces of golden blood, while the left hand had black blood, showing that the inscription had been written with both types of blood. Shi Hao immediately recognized the aura as belonging to the protector's bloodline, the same as Dugu Yun's, confirming that their bloodline did not originate from the 9 heavens but from the mysterious world beyond the stone gate. The deceased protector had clearly reached this place with immense difficulty but died filled with regret before he could return. Sanzeng judged that he had been an unmatched expert, as only someone of extraordinary cultivation could write immortal text. However, like all the corpses in this place, every trace of his essence, Dao laws, and divine power had completely vanished after death. Otherwise, even after countless ages, no one would have been able to approach his body. As a protector capable of writing immortal text and reaching this place, he had once been a world-dominating existence. Shi Hao wondered whether another world truly existed beyond the Stone Gate, whether it was the Protector's homeland, and remembered the rumors that the Protectors were merely one branch of an even greater civilization filled with unimaginably ancient and powerful families. If so, that hidden world was far beyond imagination. He also realized that any reinforcements destined to aid Imperial Pass, including those Jin Taijun claimed would arrive after 500 years, must come from that land. It also explained how, in the ancient war, mysterious forces had once interfered with the foreign invaders and confronted the undying kings. When Shi Hao asked Sanzeng what lay beyond the stone gates, Sanzeng answered, "Immortal homeland." Shenming explained that the burial land's upper ranks all knew of this ancient realm. It possessed many names, including Immortal Homeland, Immortal Domain, Pure Land, and Immortal Country, but it was almost impossible to enter. Even those born there were extremely cautious when leaving because, once they departed, they were usually unable to return. Shi Hao recalled that the White Tortoise Carry Immortal Medicine had once spoken of returning to Immortal Homeland, confirming it was the territory of immortal families. Wondering why such a place remained hidden and why even immortals seemingly could not return, Shi Hao learned from Shenming that the burial kings believed the immortal families feared their homeland becoming contaminated. Those who left were forever barred from returning because of secrets connected to the most terrifying events in existence. This horrified Shi Hao, making him suspect that the 9 heavens 10 earths itself contained hidden dangers. According to Sanzeng and Shenming, even the foreign undying kings feared the beings of Immortal Homeland above all else. Endless years ago, Immortal Homeland had been connected to the 9 heavens, allowing free travel, but several major incidents severed the passage. While immense changes also occurred within the immortal realm itself, they lamented that truths once known throughout the world had become nothing more than myths after endless ages. Shi Hao reflected that future generations might call Immortal Ancient the era of true immortals while naming their own age the era of darkness or chaos. Sanzeng added that some burial kings believed they would all eventually become ashes of history because the truth of this era would be buried forever, its greatest heroes forgotten, leaving only an illusion of eternal peace. Shi Hao vowed to survive, uncover the truth, and become powerful enough not to perish alongside the era as another disposable pawn. Sanzeng then remarked that after each great era ended, survivors would scatter inheritances, Tao scriptures, and rewritten histories before a new cycle of reincarnation began. Shenming agreed, speaking as though another reincarnation had already started. Their strange tone made Shi Hao uneasy, feeling as though they were no longer young golden undead knights but ancient beings speaking from forgotten ages. Remembering the prison of darkness, where primordial spirits could escape, Shi Hao became even more suspicious of their mysterious nature. Soon afterward, they noticed hundreds of lightning spirits searching the area. The creatures placed the woven mat carrying the ancient emperor's corpse onto a meteorite, arranged themselves into a formation, and chanted ancient incantations. Sanzeng concluded that they were attempting to enter the world behind the stone gates. Shi Hao now became certain that Immortal Homeland was a vast world surpassing even the 9 heavens 10 earths, whose true history had been lost after the destruction of Immortal Ancient. The lightning spirits appeared to be trying to send the corpse into Immortal Homeland, but the tightly sealed stone gates remained unmoved despite their rituals. Suddenly, Shenming cried out as the lightning spirits uncovered one corner of the woven mat and repeatedly kowtowed. A sphere of dazzling light emerged from the mat and floated before the stone gate. Believing it might be the ancient emperor's supreme treasure or weapon, they watched as it smashed into the stone gate. The ancient gate immediately released sinister light, became almost transparent, and countless glowing patterns spread across its surface like flowing molten metal. Then the stone gates erupted with boundless radiance, illuminating endless ages. 2 ancient characters appeared upon them, carrying overwhelming great Tao aura that shook the heavens. Sanzeng recognized the inscription and declared that the 2 words were, "Immortal Domain."